Okay, hello and welcome to the Return to Food Upgrade Secrets of the Anti-Diet webinar. Thank you so much for joining me. I know this call has been a long time in the organizing, and so hopefully you got your reminders to show up. And tonight I'm going to share with you all the things that we talked about in the actual email that you were sent. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share my screen. And I'm going to switch to the presentation, but I just wanted to say hello. And from kind of overcast Vancouver here, where we've had fires, and it's really impacted our sky. Our sky kind of has this bizarre kind of reddish tinge to it, and there's lots of ash that's dripping down from fires that are engulfing the province. And so people are under some serious contemplation right now as far as their safety and the survival of their home and things like that. And I just kind of want to be mindful of that when we go into this and say a little prayer of gratitude for, you know, being all right, and also support and strength to those who are actually facing adversity right now. And, you know, the thing is many of us are actually facing some kind of adversity, some kind of challenge of some sort. And so I just want you to kind of get present to what we're going to be talking about tonight, and to just be mindful of that quote. It's one of my favorite quotes, and it says, and it comes up in the presentation later on, but it says, "Be kind, for everyone you know is facing a battle you know nothing about." And I think this is really important, and it's also important to reflect for yourself that chances are you have a battle of some variation that maybe you're not sharing with the world right now, that you might be actually internally struggling on your own, and it might be one of the reasons why you're actually here tonight. And so I'm hoping that some of the things we actually discuss tonight, the things I share with you, can shed some light into the challenges that you actually face in your world, and what's going on for you, and how you can maybe use this information to bring yourself a little lightness, a little forgiveness, and maybe some ideas on how to just kind of stay on this track of this journey of health that we're all on, and making a big difference in the world. So I'm going to switch to my presentation. So I'm going to share my screen. I believe this is where we go, and I've got a presentation organized, so we'll get right into that. Just want to say thank you and hello to everyone who's actually joined us tonight. And I'm just going to go. And if you can just let me know, one, if you can hear me, and two, if you can actually see the presentation. Apparently, sometimes with this program, it can actually happen where, I'm just going to get this organized, sorry. It's not quite perfect right now. Oops. There we go. Okay. So if you can just in the chats, just let me know if yeah, if you can see that. There's a little chat icon. It should be in the upper left-hand, right-hand corner of the presentation. And if you can just say hello, write your message here. It says at the bottom of the window. I'll just say hello first. And then if you can actually just let me know whether you can see your screen or not, that would be awesome. Okay, great. So let's see if we have any chats here. Mary can hear me. Thank you, Mary, for acknowledging that. Hello, Mary. Thanks for joining us. Sometimes it takes a little while. There's a little delay. Beth, you can hear me too. Thank you very much, Beth, for acknowledging. That's awesome. Great. Anne says, I can hear you, but so far black screen. So I've pressed the sharing. Thank you for saying hello, Mary. Yeah, it's all good by end, says Beth. Great. So hopefully, Anne, if you refresh the screen, that might be actually helpful. Oh, great. And you can see the screen of the presentation as well. That's awesome. Okay, you know what? I'm going to get started. And what I want you to kind of know too is that I want to keep this very much conversational. So I'm going to share some wisdom that I've learned over the years. I'm going to talk a little bit about the work that I'm doing now. I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey. So for those of you who have been a Return to Food supporter, and I'm guessing B, who's here, thank you, B, says it's all good my end. I know that you've been on this journey for a long time, so some of this might be a repetition to you, but it's all good reminders, I'm hoping. Great. Okay, so let's get started. So tonight we're going to discuss how to upgrade your life with the Return to Food and anti-diet secrets. So tonight we're going to talk about how what you can eat can help or hinder your life's purpose. And we're going to talk about discovering the real cause of weight gain, depression, and anxiety. It's definitely one of the real causes. I'm very aware that there are many, but this one's kind of the one that's not so much talked about. We're also going to talk about what foods are most powerful for weight loss and healing and how to make them taste amazing. And this is something that I'm really passionate about because there's no use finding out about what's good for you if you're not going to make it enticing so that you're going to actually stay on that path to make it taste good. And we're going to talk about the blocks to making changes that will make a will make a difference. I missed a word there, but aren't making. Okay, so these blocks are significant in our lives. They can actually hold us back from staying on our path, the thing we're actually meant to be doing in the world. And I want to talk a bit about this thing that kind of is unspoken about how we eat. There's a definite correlation between the energy levels that we have and the levels that we're resonating with, and how it can actually stop us from fulfilling that thing, that genius that you have within you, that beautiful dream and vision, where I believe that everyone, when they're clear, and particularly when they're healthy, knows that they're here to make a difference on the planet, and how you eat can really help you do that. So I want to help you in that area. Also talking about what your life purpose has to do with your health and happiness, how that actually all fits in with how you're eating, and for many people, why they're engaging in emotional eating. And then again, we're going to talk about how to harness emotions for powerful change in your life, and how to tap into hyper-nourishment to accelerate healing and weight loss. So if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to just type it into the chat box. And as I have breaks within this presentation, I'm really happy to answer those questions. And I also want to just make a little caveat with that. You know, often what happens is people are fearful sometimes of asking questions because they think it's too simple, simplistic, or even, I know many times I've not asked questions because I felt that I should know the answers. And it's kind of embarrassing that sometimes something so simple you think that other people know that you don't know, that maybe you should know. So please don't be shy to actually ask questions that legitimately come up for you. Okay, so we're going to get on with this. I'm going to talk a little bit about also through the program about the things that I'm doing, the programs that I'm running, because they're relevant to the conversation. And it's the reason why I'm here in the world. So as I share tips and tools and strategies, I want to share the programs that I'm running as well. Okay, so how what you eat can help or hinder your life's purpose. This is a really interesting kind of, well, I think, hypothesis. Can what you eat help or hinder your life's purpose? Well, in my experience, it can, because food is so incredibly powerful. It has the power to nourish, energize, and protect us, to heal us, to make us stronger, to give us mental clarity, to help us, you know, basically live optimally in the physical body that we're housed in. So for many people, there's an expression that says, we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. So we actually live in the body, but we have, you know, this kind of greater consciousness that we can tap into in the world. And some people call that source energy. Some people call that God. And some people refer to us as, you know, beings and extensions of God. And many religions kind of refer to this, that we are, you know, live beings connected to something greater than us. And so the house that we live in is the body. And the body is a vehicle, and like anything else, there's a house. If you just think about your physical house that you live in, it can really help us live a kind of a streamlined life. So think about a nice, clean house. Think about your dream home, and that you have a place for everything. The pots and pans are put away. It looks great. It feels great, and you have this beautiful spot that's kind of clean and clear, so that when you need something, you know where it is. When you need to get rid of something, it's easy to dispose of it because you've got a place for that. It basically is set up to facilitate you living your optimal life. If you think about the opposite of that, having a house that's kind of cramped and small, or it's bulging at the seams because you've got too much stuff and there's no space for anything, so you bring something in that might be a tool to help you live a better life, but you've got no place to put it, or it fits awkwardly and it doesn't sit right. And just compare the two and imagine how you would feel in the first house versus how you would feel in the second house. How does a house that has everything in its place and has lots of space for you and feel good help facilitate you doing the work that you're meant to be doing in the world? Well, I think it's pretty obvious that we'd all prefer to live in the first house than the second house. And the thing is it's the same thing for our bodies. Our bodies are the houses that we live in. And if we're giving it nourishing, energizing, protective foods that help it live optimally, life is much easier. And in fact, as far as mood swings go, it's so much easier to handle life when you're actually eating an optimal, the optimal foods, because what happens is you are actually experiencing this beautiful clarity. So you might have dramas going on in your life. You might have difficult things that you have to, face, challenges you need to face. But when your body's nourished and it doesn't have toxicity into it, it makes life so much easier to cope with, and you have more even moods. The converse is like the second house is if you're putting stuff into your house, like junk, lots of junk, and you're not cleaning it out regularly and giving it foods that will clean it up. Instead, you've got foods that are clogging it up, creating toxicity, or you're flooding it with too much food so you can't actually even move. It makes it harder to do the thing that you're meant to do in this world. And so it's really important, if you have a mission in life, you actually see that there's something important for you to do in this world, that you start to feed your body the food that's going to help you live in this way that actually feels calm and peaceful and loving. And I certainly know this from experience. I have lived in a body that most definitely was not allowing me to live my best life. And now I certainly am in that place where I've, over many years, developed something that I'm incredibly proud of. And I'm able to actually be a leader in the community of finding people who are really wanting to help others return to eating real food and become return to food coaches. And that's really quite exciting for me. I have actually managed to participate in things that as a child I could have only dreamed of. They were just complete, way far out dreams that I never thought that would ever happen to me, and places that I would go and places that I would speak at that I never ever thought that I would actually be on the panel with respected scientists and authors, food educators, farmers, people I totally admire and am inspired by. And to be able to work with clients, like billionaires and elite athletes and royalty and, celebrity chefs, things like that. That's been super exciting for me. And I can tell you that doing this has come about because I've actually learned to start to nourish, energize, and protect my body instead of actually feeding it foods that really drag it down and cause dramatic mood swings, create brain fog, and really, really pull me down. And so you can see the slides that I'm showing you here are all examples of great things that I've been able to be involved in. I've had the honor and the excitement and, thrill to be involved in, and to be, that's actually afforded me to live in a place that is a bit of a dream for me. Right now, this is my home in West Vancouver. You can see my backyard and what it's just the extension of my backyard with streams and meadows and beautiful places to actually practice the things that actually keep me well. But I can honestly say that this wasn't always the way for me. And for any of you who actually know my before and after story, you can see here in this picture my before story where I was actually size 16. Okay, so that was twice my present size. And, oh, that doesn't, size 16, yeah, there should be a size 8 there. And I've maintained that weight for over 15 years, all without dieting. And the secret to that really has become to stop dieting and to return to eating real food. And that's made a big difference in my life. And I have a great deal of gratitude for the journey to returning to eating real food. And I can promise you that eating this way has helped give me the mental clarity and that even moods that have actually kept me on the path when things have got really difficult and I wasn't quite sure what to do next. So let's talk now about the real cause of weight gain, depression, and anxiety. There's a few things. Definitely our food contributes to it. And it's counterintuitive to actually think about it this way. But in my work with people over the years, many clients, I have discovered that it's not about the food, and that the real cause of weight gain, depression, and anxiety actually starts with our thoughts. And our thoughts actually are very powerful. We can choose thoughts that serve us, and we can choose thoughts that don't serve us. So we can actually take any situation in life and find a way to spin it, so to speak, in our favor, and we can also find a way to spin it that keeps us in a state of not actually truly fulfilling and realizing our dreams. And this is really important because there's a lot of work on the earth right now where we need light workers. One of my missions in life is to create stars. And what I mean by stars are not egotistical people who are, you know, it's all about them and they are on magazine covers and things like that, although that can definitely happen and it can happen for the right reasons. But to me, a star is where your reason in life, the purpose of stars in the sky is to send out light into the world. And so with the people that I'm working with, the coaches that I'm working with, what they're doing is definitely what I would consider light workers in helping people return to eating real food, and they are definitely emitting light in the world. And so the thoughts that we think and how they actually contribute to weight gain, depression, and anxiety are very interesting, because there's a fascinating thing that happens is that when you choose a thought that vibrates at a very low level, and we talk about this in the Return to Food coaching program, that there's a vibrational frequency in which a thought you're thinking emanates. And when that thought is a low thought, what I have experienced is people will choose a corresponding food to that thought that kind of vibrates on the same level. So if we think about an electromagnetic frequency that's in vegetables, I believe it's around 90 to like 250 megahertz, and when it's organic, it's something like 30% higher. Whereas a food like pizza or cake can be around 5 to 0 megahertz. And so there's this correlation that I've noticed is that when people are depressed, very seldom do they go, oh my God, I'm so upset, my boyfriend's broken up with me, and they sit on the couch and eat a big bowl of carrots. What they'll tend to go for is the ice cream, the chips, the foods that actually vibrate at a lower frequency. We seem to attract our like, and we want to choose the foods that give us a little boost or, a drug-like reaction from the sugars or the opiates in dairy and wheat to kind of soothe us immediately. But long-term, what they do is they actually will create that toxicity and depression within our body. And what happens with that is then we also start to think more negative thoughts because the foods are resonating at that lower charge. They're also creating disharmony within the body, causing the blood sugar to spin out of control and then go into a hypoglycemic plunge. And it creates all kinds of chain reactions within the body that have it resonate at a lower level. And then we start this vicious cycle. More often than not, is because we will continue to choose a food that will give us a corresponding high to the low we're experiencing, and that's that vicious cycle of addiction that happens with food. And so even though the food is very integral to this process, it's actually our thoughts that create these feelings that create the impetus for us to actually choose foods. So if you're wanting to get off that treadmill, the first thing you need to do is to actually choose thoughts that resonate at a higher level, okay? Because with the higher level thought, you're going to actually have a higher level feeling. And with the higher level feeling, you're going to be able to grasp for something that will actually resonate, vibrate at a higher level than the foods that actually create that negative cycle. So the real cause of weight gain, depression, and anxiety is actually our thoughts. And in those thoughts, we actually choose the corresponding foods to resonate with that. So the stopping of that cycle is actually managing to start to consciously create thoughts that serve us better. That's really important. So, and this piece is something I go into in the Return to Food online program, the coaching program. And for me personally, it was one of the things that really changed the whole thing around for me in my relationship with food. And as I, go on this path, I know it's a constant evolution. I certainly don't think by any means that I'm completely, perfect in how and what I'm eating right now. But what I do know is that I have a great deal more peace around food. And in Return to Food, the book, I have an image where I talk about rest in peace, perfect eating. And it shows a gravestone with, rest in peace, perfect eating on it. And it talks about how the rest in peace, perfect eating had passed away. And there's lots of funny kind of little quirky things around the writing of that story. But ultimately it says it's been survived by peaceful eating. And that's where I hope to transition and help people to transition people to, is to actually have a peace around what they're eating and not be uptight about the foods that they're eating, but to choose foods that love their body back. So not just foods that you love, but foods that will love your body back. Because there's many foods that I love and have loved over the years that haven't loved my body back, and in fact created this toxic and addictive environment that spiraled me down into depression and anxiety, and ensuing was a weight gain. So just a little counterintuitive thought that it's actually not about the food. And we see that it's really an epidemic right now. The Biggest Loser, I was actually on an airplane with a fellow who asked me, he found out what I did for a living, and he asked me what I thought about The Biggest Loser. And I went into this huge rant, and I called, "You mean the biggest eating disorder?" And I went into how that program was really toxic and unhealthy for helping people to develop a healthy relationship with food, because what it did was it took something that's almost sacred to me, which is, really good food, and turned it into a game show. And it didn't deal with the root lying cause of why people had got to the place where they were actually obese. It was dealing with superficial things, and it was dealing with it in a mind and a way that messes with the mind. And, if you actually go into the stories and histories of a bunch of people who have actually gone through the program, they've ended up in a worse condition than before they started, or they have gone down the route of lap band surgery, and all kinds of problems have actually ensued with that, and depression after the show, because it doesn't simulate a realistic environment. I mean, how many of you think that if you were given the incentive of millions of dollars, you had a personal trainer to have you work out 6 to 8 hours a day, someone who prepared all of your meals, and you had, all that pressure of your friends and family and millions of people watching you, do you think you could actually lose weight? I imagine you could, but it doesn't actually simulate reality. And when people actually go back to reality, and they haven't dealt with the root cause that caused the weight gain in the first place, so they're not taught how to choose a higher thought to deal with the mental, emotional, and spiritual issues that they're actually facing, it can create more disordered eating. And so that thought process is being spread throughout the world, and it's really toxic and dangerous. And this is really important stuff, because we're starting to see a world where we have some really toxic things in our food, like genetically modified organisms, lots of refined sugar in the diet. Just today I interviewed the producer, the director, and the star of that sugar movie, or that sugar film. And if you want to talk about the science that's coming out around sugar, it is amazing. And the film reveals how much of scientific information around sugar has actually been suppressed for years, and the amount of disease that is actually connected with refined sugar. It's incredible. So we do have a lot of work to do in this world to eliminate what I call these Star Trek foods from our food system. And as I often say, it's food, Jim, but not as we know it. And some crazy things that really we're feeding to our children, and that sugar film really capitalizes on not capitalizes, it really points out, you know, how important this is for us to feed our children real food instead of refined food. Because as I talk about in Return to Food, the book, what we fill our children's bodies with affects how they think, how they feel, how they behave. It affects who they are, and ultimately it can affect who they become and the quality of life that they have while they're on the planet. And we're seeing that these substandard foods are a reflection of a great deal of negativity in our world, and we really need to kind of switch this around, turn things on and turn things up. So I'm just going to check and see if there are any questions. Nope, we're good. And I'm just going to keep going on with the presentation. Okay, these are the results that we're actually seeing, and we do need literally thousands of people helping the millions who are in the dark and not educated about what's actually happening in their food. And then once they find out about these foods, as many of these films are actually creating awareness around, we need to help educate them on how they can transition from what I call this lethal recipe to nature's principle. So these highly refined and processed foods. Okay, so I want to talk now about the blocks to making changes that you know will make a difference but aren't making. So what are the things that actually come up for you? So you might actually know that certain foods are good for you, and yet we're still drawn to these foods that are not serving us. And we might, you know, think to ourselves, well, you know, I'm a smart person. I know this isn't good for me, but why am I not making this change? So I'm just going to go back a slide for a second to this one. And if you haven't seen this analogy before and you haven't read Return to Food, you may not be aware or know that refined sugar, the lethal recipe, contains refined sugar, refined oils, refined grains, refined salts, and refined chemicals. And any food, those are kind of the 5 main culprits, but any food can be turned into an ingredient in the lethal recipe. And the lethal recipe comes basically from the thought that the countries that start to import these processed ingredients, processed pseudo foods, you can start to see immediately that their lifestyle diseases escalate. And we see things as very basic things, as Weston A. Price, the dentist, the Canadian dentist who went around the world and looked at traditional cultures. And he noticed that anytime refined flours and sugars went into any community, the mandible, the actual bone structure, changed among children, and that their teeth started to become crooked and their skin, you know, changed. And we can actually see that happening around the world. And opium sap in its natural state is not toxic or addictive. It has opiates in it, but it is only through the refining process where they use heat, toxic chemicals, and remove the macro and micronutrients continually and over many, many processes to get it to the point where it's a clear white substance. So opium is a toxic addictive substance, but when you process it even further into heroin, it becomes even more toxic and addictive. And the same thing happens with coca leaves as they turn them into cocaine, that clear white substance that comes from a leaf that in its natural state just gives you a little pick-me-up like a cup of coffee or a cup of tea would, but it's not highly addictive or toxic. And so we see this process happens with refined foods, where they will take any natural food and they start to expose it to heat, toxic chemicals, and start to remove the macro and micronutrients to change the molecular structure into something that is addictive and toxic to the body. And we see now through scientific, you know, the miracle of science, where they're using it properly and they're actually noticing that sugar, refined sugar, lights up the brain, the opiate receptors in the brain 8 times more than cocaine does. So this is a substance that's highly refined, that is cheap and available everywhere. In fact, it's available so widely, it's very difficult to avoid. It's very difficult to get away from. So it's kind of crazy that this is all around us. And then we can see that happens with our oils, the same thing when you see the clear glass, bottles and plastic bottles in the supermarket, that they've been exposed to, chemicals like bleach, caustic soda, phosphoric acid, synthetic antioxidants, pretty nasty things, and including heptane and hexane, caustic soda being, the active ingredient in Drano. And then it's using this as a tool to remove the macro micronutrients to create this clear white substance that lasts indefinitely on the supermarket shelf. So the blocks to making changes that will make a difference but aren't making can actually happen as simple as removing these lethal recipe ingredients from your kitchen, removing them from being so readily available in your house. This is dramatic because what happens is when we have those moments of weakness, when we're doubting ourselves, when we're on our path and we're not sure about what we want to do in life, we can actually be very easily drawn into these foods as a form of distraction, as a form of actually taking us away from what it is that we're actually meant to be doing. So for me, one of the things that I strategically do is I try to remove the lethal recipe ingredients, and I try and have these things away from my home. And I'll give you a little example. So, and this is just, I don't believe in austerity. I love having delicious things in life. I love ice cream. And one of the things, my parents had come to visit from Alberta, and they were staying with me, and it was a super hot night last night, so we decided to drive for ice cream. Only we went across town to the best place for ice cream, and the queues were out lining up almost around the block. And my mom, she's getting a bit on in years, and we didn't want her to have to sit and wait for all that time, or stand and wait, either way. So we got some pints to take away. And we came home and we had the ice cream, and it was delicious. And for me, I knew that whatever was left over in that ice cream that I would eat. And as wasteful as it is, and this is big for me because one of my #1 things around food is I don't like to waste food, I immediately took that ice cream today and I filled the ice cream jars with water. Basically, and to let them melt so I could actually empty them into the sink. And because I know that if that ice cream's there, I just know myself. And one of the principles I teach in Return to Food with my coaches is this: above all, to thine own self be true. So you need to know the things. And people think sometimes, well, you should be strong. And I say, well, would you say to an alcoholic that they should be strong and just have the alcohol in the house? That might work for some people, but it doesn't actually work for me. And I know myself, and I know what actually happens when I have too much ice cream. It affects my body, and I don't feel well, and it affects my ability to think properly. It affects my mood swings. It affects my moods. A little bit I can handle, but more than that, I can't. And so the blocks to actually making changes are really starting to get to know yourself, and to create that self-awareness around your patterns, and stop fooling yourself. There's this old joke that goes like, have you ever been driving along and you have in mind, this place where you can get your favorite pastry or dessert, and you make a decision to yourself, if there's a parking spot open in front of that place, you'll stop, but if not, you'll keep going. And sure enough, you actually get there, and there is a spot. It took you 11 times going around the block, but you finally found a spot. When it comes to these foods that are the lethal recipe, they're highly seductive and tempting. And it takes a lot of this being out of our system to resist having it. So you have to know yourself. If you know that you cannot resist these foods, or you have just a little bit and it sends you on a tailspin, particularly if what you're doing, the bulk of what you're doing, isn't highly energizing, nourishing, and protective, you need to know what it is, what changes you need to make to actually do that. So the things that are blocking you, to actually make these changes are actually knowing yourself, and then establishing some tips, tools, and strategies around creating a kitchen and a food environment for yourself that supports you en masse, doing what nourishes, energizes, protects you, and keeps you away as much as possible from the lethal recipe. So for me, I usually have ice cream out, and I usually don't have ice cream in the house. So this, above all, to thine own self be true, very important to understand and know yourself. Okay, so again, please feel free to ask questions at this stage. So this is one of the illustrations from the book, and it basically says, addiction is your body telling you you're not listening to your soul. And I believe that all of us have a soul's calling. All of us want to be part of something greater than ourselves, want to actually be in service to one another. And I believe that when we block that, when we choose a life out of safety and security, and I'm not saying, to not, be responsible and take care of your family. That's really important. But there's many ways of doing this. And what I've found in my work is that often when people aren't doing the artwork or their soul's calling, that sometimes they will actually, and they do these for out of what are perceived as very noble reasons, like taking care of their family. Sometimes if they're not engaged on it on some level, what ends up happening is that they will start to engage in activities and forms of addiction that help numb them out from avoiding this soul's calling. And sometimes it can actually happen because they're thinking, who am I, to do this work? Like, what qualifications do I have? Lots of thought processes that can actually prevent us from stepping into that life that we're meant to be leading. And as a result, we can actually be eating foods that resonate on this lower level and become addicted to them. So one of the key points and the changes around this is to start listening to your soul's calling, because you are here on this planet for a very special reason, that you have gifts to contribute that only you can actually contribute. You have a community that you have connected with on some level, or you're connected to on some level, that you can actually help them. And it's really important to figure out that place of service. And we will go into a little bit of why that is so significant. So for me, that has been the Return to Food community, and the academy, the coaching program. All of that has become my life's mission. And I can promise you that it was not an easy path. I didn't just automatically come to this. This has actually been something that I've created in 15 plus years, that I really set about. I knew I was meant to create something that was meant to offer something of value in the world. And I made lots of detours. I had lots of moments of insecurity and not knowing where I'm going to, where I'm going to, how I'm going to actually do this. The picture got clearer and clearer the further I went along. And what I've created is, to me, a program and a platform and strategies and support to help people who have similar mission, who basically also believe that we need to really help people get off the lethal recipe, get onto eating real food, to actually live a life that's really meaningful and healthy and nourishing, and nourishes them mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. That it helps those people to create an income and go faster and farther than I did, to have success in much less time than it took me those 15 years to actually get to this point. And so when you find that thing for you that just lights you up, and that you actually feel this calling to actually do, and you start to follow that path. And it doesn't mean you have to quit your job to do it. You can actually be doing this even just 1 hour a night. Turn off the television, turn off the computer, get off of Facebook, and really start to, spend that time exploring what it is that you're meant to be doing in this world. I promise you, it will make a significant difference, and you will start to get onto the path, and you start to choose the foods that empower you to have the better moods, the better thoughts, to create a better life. And these are just some of the people that have come through the program over the years. I see B there in the picture, and B's actually here on the call tonight, which is really exciting. And some of those people have actually gone on to do the Return to Food Coaching, the Academy program, and are doing some really interesting things in their life. Gina was just with us at the Return to Food Academy Bowen Retreat, where it was 7 days residential, where we were cooking, hiking, doing meditations, yoga, kayaking. Actually, we had organic pie and went kayaking on the same night, and had a group called Himalayan who came in and sang to us. And we basically cooked our meals together. We had guest speakers. We worked on the business. We worked on the speaking side of things, and we laughed a lot. It was a lot of fun. So, and these people who have been involved in the program are so inspiring and so committed. And Gina, as I just saw there, Gina Sauer, she basically on the retreat narrowed down, and she discovered her niche. And when she actually realized who her niche was and narrowed it down, she wants to basically help serve Aboriginal women in Canada, to help them return to food and to get off the lethal recipe. She literally broke down crying with such intense feeling of emotion of how she actually wanted to help these women. And so being part of that was very exciting. So what your life purpose has to do with health and happiness. I think I probably alluded a lot to this, but I've got some things that I want to share with you around that. I truly believe that when you are actually following that thing that you're meant to be doing in the world, and I think service is really important, and there have been many times where in my life I knew that this was significant, and I had experiences of truly being of service to other people. And although they were good, and they had a certain level of fulfillment, when I got onto my life's purpose and I actually served on the path that I was meant to be on, and followed what I call the holistic hero's journey, that's where I just started to notice that things started to show up to really help me and to serve me. And in that, I found it much easier to make stronger choices for my strong life, so to speak, and to actually choose the foods that nourished, energized, and protect me, and really helped me along this path, because I'm one of these people who's very susceptible to depression. And if I eat the wrong foods, I become depressed. I think negative thoughts, and I stop exercising, and I stop really starting to see the big picture in the world. So health and happiness, choosing the right foods, there's a deep connection with getting on that path. And sometimes it happens where you start to choose the right foods and your life purpose actually starts to unfold more clearly. And sometimes it's a matter of really focusing on your life's purpose, your mission, you know, who it is you're meant to serve in this world and how you're going to serve them, that can actually aid you and get you onto the path of actually eating well. So there's so much about this journey that truly is empowering, and it's exciting. And one of my favorite people in the world to talk about this is Joseph Campbell, and he talks about the hero's journey. And I believe we all have a hero's journey to go on. Well, so does he, and he was around and is an expert on this. And I basically believe in his thoughts. And in Return to Food, the book, we have the holistic hero's journey. And this illustration is one of my favorite illustrations from the book. It says, become your own hero, to do the thing you fear you cannot do, but feel you were born to do, the thing you most admire in others, but in your own unique, amazing, loving way. And there's a wonderful film that's highly recommended, that comes as part of the learning for Return to Food, the coaching program and the academy, and that's a film called Finding Joe. And I highly recommend you check out that film, because one of the big things that they talk about in that film is how do you know if you're on your path? And one of the ways to know if you're not on the path is that there's already a path there for you. And as I explained to my coaches, is that I'm not here to give you a path to go on. Your hero's journey will not happen by becoming a mini-me or, you know, a carbon copy of Sherry Strong. And even though I've created the kind of the blueprint for many of the things to actually do, they're there to help you facilitate your own life's journey, your own life's, you know, exploration and path. And what I'm here to do is to give you the tools to make cutting that path far more efficient. So if you need a machete, you know, or a tool in some way, I'm here to actually help you facilitate that by giving you the tips, tools, and resources, everything that you need to actually carve your own path on this hero's journey that you're meant to be on. And Joseph Campbell says, we must be willing to let go of the life we planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us. And I truly have seen this and believe this. It's what I was actually talking about with Damon Gameau, who's the star and the creator of that Sugar film. And I call it emotional bungee jumping. And he has a beautiful phrasing for it from one of his mentor philosophers. And he talks about taking a leap of faith. And I really think Joseph Campbell is alluding to this as well. So how to harness emotions for powerful change in your life. This is really important because our emotions, if you think about it, emotions, so that word motions in there is the thing that motivates us. And so it's so important that we have those higher thoughts so that we can actually create powerful emotions that actually change our life in a powerful way. Everyone's aware of how emotions can actually drive us to behaviors that don't serve us, that can actually make us sick. They can actually lead us to doing things that are actually self-destructive. They might be self-sabotaging, and definitely, painful to us and don't serve our higher life challenges. So this really comes back to that whole thing about choosing the higher thought. And so it can be as simple as finding the gold in it. There's an expression that everything happens for a reason. I'm more of the school of thought that we can find reason in everything that happens. And no matter what happens to you, there is something that you can learn, that you can appreciate and be grateful for, even if it's something as tragic as losing someone you love, even if their life was cut short, and no matter how incredibly painful that is. We've seen literally thousands of examples where people have actually used that tragedy to then help other people, or even at the very least to just really hold on and be totally grateful for that person having been in our life, and to actually, have the beautiful feelings that have actually come up as a result of that person being in our life. So harnessing emotions for powerful change comes down to really choosing the thoughts that bring out the feelings in you that make you feel hopeful, that make you feel grateful, that make you feel inspired. And one of the best practices that I have actually used in my life and have seen very powerfully in other people's lives is the practice of gratitude. And to constantly be focusing on what you do have and what it is you wish to create in the world and all the good things, as opposed to what is not actually quite right in your life. Because once you go down that path, I can promise you, if you compare yourself to other people in the world, it's a game that you cannot win. Whereas when you focus on what is good about your life, there's a wonderful quote by John Wooden, says, "Do not allow what you cannot do to interfere with what you can do." When you focus on what you do have, you start to see all the resources that you have. And I have seen people who have taken, $10 in their pocket and created amazing lives, that help amazing people, through building an empire, by constantly focusing on what it is they need to create the things that they need to create this vision that is a fulfillment of their life purpose. So no matter what you have in life, as long as you're breathing, the expression goes, you have way more right going on in your body than you have going wrong. And so you start to keep focusing on what is right and most powerful in your life. And I love this phrase, and I'll tell you a little story, a little bit of something about transparency. I recently went through a relationship dissolution. I like to call it that, than a breakup. And we decided to go in our separate ways. And I had invested a lot in my business, and so I had limited resources. And there were two ways that I could go. I realized that I could actually just find a very modest place and, work away, busy beaver myself away, and slowly work my way up to getting, all those resources back on track, to actually create the business that I wanted to create on the level that I wanted to create it. And then there was another option, and it was the voice inside me that said, "Go brave, raise your standards." And it was scary. And I found this place, the place where I'm living in right now, that really at the time was beyond what my vision could see, because I was coming out of this relationship, and as anyone knows, the extraction process, no matter how amicable and honorable it is painful, and it requires a lot of resources from you. And I didn't feel I had a great deal of resources within me to raise my standards. But I did. And in typical fashion of the universe, it does meet you there. And so if you have a dream and you want to pursue it, and you actually feel that it's part of your calling, go and take that leap of emotional bungee jumping, take that leap of faith and raise your standards and start to focus on what's right in your world. Don't allow what you cannot do to interfere with what you can do, and move in the direction of your dreams. And as Joseph Campbell also says, doors will open where there weren't doors before. So opportunities will create themselves to actually help you. And there's so many ways that you can actually make these things happen. And when you start to feed yourself nourishing, energizing, protective foods, you start to choose thoughts that are more powerful. You start to get these elevated moves, and you get this mental clarity that helps you see opportunity and the way to actually make things happen everywhere. So here we are with Joseph Campbell, and he says, when you follow your bliss, doors will open where you would not have thought there would be doors, and where there wouldn't have been a door there for anyone else. And I have seen this happen time and time again in my life and in my business. And you don't have to sell out for this to actually happen. You can actually keep on the track, and amazing things and opportunities will open up for you. So the last point that I'm going to cover, based on what we were actually promising in the on the web page for this webinar, is how to tap into hypernourishment to accelerate healing and weight loss. This is a really important point, and it was one of the points that I know has made my practice stand out way above other practices. Why I've actually been able to get amazing transformation for my clients. And when I first started teaching nutrition, I would get a certain amount, I would have clients get a certain amount of success for themselves when it was just based on nutritional information. But I was really frustrated because they weren't having the success that I could actually envisage for them. When I started working intuitively more with them, so trusting my intuition and, tapping into their life experience, and kind of working on a much more intuitive level, they had more success. And I thought, oh, this is good. I'm going to add this to the string on my bow, my tool belt. And then when I started to get them in the kitchen to preparing real food themselves, they again had even more success. So I knew that was a key point. But it wasn't until I started to incorporate the concept of hypernourishment, where it's about looking into where you are toxic and malnourished, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So it wasn't just about the food, right? And that can also involve exercise and movement, right? So then when we started to actually work on that level of finding where they're toxic and malnourished, removing toxicity, so removing the lethal recipe, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, and then moving into how we can actually nourish them and even hyper-nourish them. So there are certain things that will actually nourish you, and then there are ways of accelerating that nourishment, which I call hyper-nourishment. And again, that can happen on a mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical level. So some examples of this is that we have mental influences all the time coming at us in the way of news and television and even internet. There's all kinds of ways where we can actually be taking into our mind addictive material that is actually toxic to us. So murder mysteries and things like that, they're addictive. They're addictive to the mind, just the way refined sugar is addictive to the body. And what we don't realize is that they can actually create a negative frequency within the body, so create negative vibes in the body. And that often what we'll find is that can actually lead us to eating foods that resonate on that same level, that aren't going to nourish, energize, and protect us, aren't going to create that environment in our body where we can actually fulfill our life's purpose. So starting to look in each area of your life. Where are you mentally taking in things that are toxic or things that just aren't even nourishing you? So they might just be things that might entertain you, but there's no true nourishment in it. Or they might be just giving you intellectual information, but they're not building your spirit. And start to replace those and go through your life. You become the detective of your life to start to find ways to actually find nourishing and hyper-nourishing variations of that mental stimulation that's coming into your life. And you can do the same with emotional things, connections, spiritual connections, social connections that can happen. And spiritually as well. So what are you doing for your spirit? Are you walking in nature, or are you, not exercising, so that would be, you know, something that can work on the malnourishment part of the physical side of things. But there are ways in each of these categories where we can choose things that uplift our spirit, and there are ways that can actually bring it down. And I go into greater detail in the book, but this is a significant detail that I have found in every client when I've worked with them. It has accelerated their healing and weight loss when we actually work on this level. So it's not just the superficial physical level. And remember, I started out this webinar with the quote of "Be kind, for everyone you know is fighting a battle you know nothing about." And with all the information that I've presented tonight, it's my hope that you will actually take this from a position of kindness, and not to actually be judging, oh, well, hopefully not me, or yourselves for where you've fallen short, but to really focus on that John Wooden quote, to not interfere with what you cannot do or what you're not doing. Not let that to interfere with what it is that you can do. And even if it's something as simple as going to the freezer right now and pouring, you know, hot water on the ice cream so you don't actually finish it. Only you know what's in your house. Only you know the things that are truly tempting you, that are actually keeping you from your life's paths, that are actually bringing and drawing you down, that are creating negative thoughts and negative emotions in your life. So if you can start to take these steps and you do it from a deep place of love and self-care, I promise you that the secrets of the anti-diet, this process and this program, will yield beautiful things. And it will help you uncover who you truly are, because those negative emotions and those thoughts and those feelings that are holding you back from your life's mission aren't really you. And Joseph Campbell says the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. And the fastest path to actually getting to that place of knowing yourself, as Shakespeare said, "This above all to thine own self be true," is to start to feed and nourish yourself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and to remove the toxicity in all of those areas. So the foods that are most powerful for weight loss and healing, and how to make them taste amazing. So these are the foods, and I'm going to make it very, very simple for you, that grow. So things that grow from plants are the most powerful substances in the world for nourishing, energizing, and protecting you. And the best way you can actually find those is at your farmer's market, or, you know, in the produce department of your supermarket, or if you want to get into some dry goods versions of them, in a health food section of your supermarket. And markets that specialize in organic and whole foods are even better if you can actually make it to that. And the best way to actually taste and make those things taste amazing are by buying the best quality ingredients that you can afford. And in the Return to Food Academy, we actually teach classes on how to eat organic for $70 a week, and even as little as $30 a week. So it's not about spending a lot of money. It's about finding the best things that you can actually find, and using simple things like, you know, coconut oil, like cold pressed olive oil, making salads. You know, the Zoodle maker is a great tool for making zucchini noodles and grating vegetables. That is just incredibly awesome. And every time I do this and make simple dressings, you know, like the Glory dressing from Return to Food, 3 ingredients. You can make this dressing in 3 minutes flat, from pulling out the bottles to getting it into the blender or a jar and shaking it up and making this dressing. It's very, very simple. The trick is to eat fresh, eat in season, use a natural sea salt if you're going to season, you know, natural spices, you know, just use them. You don't have to use a lot of them, because the vegetables will taste great on their own. And if you start to do these things, if you start to eat in this way and start to eat according to nature's principles, so that which is most abundant on the planet, and eat less of that which is harder to obtain in nature, and to avoid anything that you cannot make in nature, and simply dressing it and doing as little as possible. When you buy it with integrity and it's fresh, it takes very little to taste amazing. And so less is more when it comes to this. And I promise you, it will make a big difference in your life. So I just want to let you know a bit about the work that I'm doing. So I've started the Return to Food coaching program, which is an 8-week online program. And this is the path of transformation. I've created an online program that I would actually, the same process that I would use with clients that would pay me thousands of dollars to do this with them, I've actually put into the 8-week program. And it's an 8-week program where each week you have modules, videos of, I'm just going to show you the dashboard just right now so you can actually see. I'm not sure if you can actually see this, so I'm just going to go to share screen, screen share. Oops, oh, here you go. Here we go, so let's try this. Okay, so I'm going to try that and see if you can see there. Yes. Ooh, that's probably not a good one. Okay, I'm just still learning this, guys, so be patient with me. Let's try this. Share that. Nope. Let's see if that works any better. Oh, I don't think that's going to work. Okay. Well, the 8-week online program has basically, it has modules. It has, let's try this again. Go here. Okay. Oops. Oops. I can't seem to bring it up. So anyway, it goes through this process of basically, it will take you through 8 modules. And the first module is all the philosophies on return to food, so a philosophical approach. So you're going to learn in that module all about nature's principle, the lethal recipe, the consumption concept, the replace principle, pick your poisons, and you get the videos, the audios, and the activity sheets in there. And then there are also bonus interviews with many experts that, like I talked about, Damon Gammo from that sugar film. Then we move into module 2, which is the mindset, and you'll actually learn about hypernourishment and mind tools that actually help you on this path to health. And also this course, just to let you know, is the prerequisite course for the Return to Food Academy. So everyone who becomes a Return to Food coach has to do this course because it really helps them with the tools where they can actually make a difference in their clients' lives and get those transformations that happen so easily and readily. And module 3 is about the heart set. So why the heart set? Why the heart is so powerful, and emotional strategy, and your life calling you. And again, there's audios and activity sheets. So if you want to go away and do that, you know, in the car, you can actually be listening to those things. And module 4 is about weight loss, disease reversal, and energy hacking. And so we really talk about the role of the return to love, and how that affects our body, the universal recipe for healing, energy hacking philosophy, and the role that finding joy and meaning actually has in our life. And again, there's video, there's audio, activity sheets in the videos in that. Module 5 is the path to holistic living, and there's an introduction, the meditation, the 11 stages of the hero's journey. We talk about fluidity, and I take you in and give you the toolkit of that really help you fast track your journey, and really go into creating a sustainable toolkit for sustainable living. For that, module 6 is really important because this is about listening to your body. Okay, so helping you understand the signals that your body's giving, understanding craving and addiction, and particularly working, you know, on overcoming addiction and building a strong body ecology. Module 7, this is where I take you into my kitchen and I talk about making the transition, shopping, cooking holistically, equipping the kitchen. I take you into my fridge, my pantry. I show you my travel kitchen, and I show you how to do a kitchen audit, which is really significant in this, and it really helps you make that transition gracefully. And so when you're eating on the go, you can actually do that. And there are recipes and menus for you to actually tap into. And module 8 is, if you're interested in becoming a Return to Food revolutionary, it's really helping you understand that if you want to play a part, how you can do that, feeding and starving the monster, what part you might play as a leader, a coach, an advocate, and how just even living the Return to Food philosophy, how powerful that can be. And if you wish to create a thriving holistic business, how you can actually do that. So there's lots that is actually covered in that course. And if you'd like further information, you simply need to email me, Sherry@returntofood.com, and I will put you on the list that helps you find out more information about that program. So as I alluded to before, Joseph Campbell says if the path before you is clear, you're probably on someone else's. And so it's really important to kind of start to tap into what it is that is most important for you to get you back on that path that will help you serve the world in the most powerful way. I would love to be a guide and a mentor for you. I do that mentoring through these online programs now. And as part of those online programs, I actually also create resources that really help you get on that path. And for people who are actually ready to actually sign up for the Return to Food coaching program, I've actually created some bonuses that go along with that program, like how to create information products that sell, the cooking school blueprint. So this is how, if you want to learn to do cooking classes as part of serving people, I basically take you into the vault and show you all the things that I've actually learned about running cooking classes and how powerful and important it can be and how it can lead you to amazing experiences in the world as I have actually experienced. And it literally can open up a dream life for you that you will literally blow your mind. And also how to create packages that give you freedom. So the traditional coaching model is actually broken. And to actually help people, truly help people, you have to create a path of transformation. And that's why that first program is so significant, because it shows people how to take, clients through a transformational process as well as themselves, right? Because we're always on that path. And really create packages that help people commit to their transformation and can also create a steady cash flow. So if you're wanting to make a living for this, make a living in a life doing this thing that I love so much and our coaches love so much, you really need a way to actually figure out how to do this smartly so that you're not struggling and being one of these, what they call a broke healer, and that you're actually one of these people who's literally thriving as you're helping other people to live a great life. And the other thing that's really important, as I mentioned about Gina and how she discovered her niche, her tribe and her niche is to actually serve Aboriginal women. And so we're also then through the Academy teaching you how to leverage this to actually create your business so that you can actually reach your market faster, and how you can actually create information products for them and platforms to get your products out and the marketing and selling of that. Also, for anyone who signs up for the Return to Food coaching program, if you're interested in actually doing this and you want to sign up before the call, we also include the Return to Food Live program. This is a one-day event in Vancouver, and many of the people who actually came to this one-day live event actually went on to study the Return to Food Academy. And this really is a taste of the Academy, and it gives you a taste of that beautiful time that we actually spent on Bowen Island and how we actually really live. So it's very cool. So I think I just realized that I've been talking about these things but haven't been scrolling through. So I'll just start from the beginning. There is how to create holistic information products that sell. There's the cooking school blueprint. There's how to create packages that give you freedom and discover your niche and leverage your business. And the Return to Food Live program, all of these programs combined are worth $2,000. And it's very exciting because the Return to Food coaching program is $997. And when you sign up, you actually get all of those bonuses for free. So essentially for $997, you're getting $3,000 worth of value. And lastly, I'm just going to share some of the love stories. These are people who I've actually worked with over the years, and how they've their results from actually working with me and getting a sense of working with me. And that's the wonderful thing about the Return to Food coaching program is you get 8 weeks to be working with me for a very basically a minimal investment. If you were to actually work with me in private coaching, that would literally cost you tens of thousands of dollars to actually get that one-on-one time through the materials that I'm sharing and the Google Hangouts. So each week there's a Google Hangout where you have access to me to ask questions and to basically pick my brain. So John Benson is the CEO CEO of 3XL. He's an online marketer, but before that, he was actually he's a fitness and nutrition author and wrote Fit Over 40. And this book literally sold hundreds of thousands of copies around the world. And he has his own transformative life story. And he says here, it's not an understatement to say that Sherry Strong helped resurrect my life and my health. Her principles within Return to Food illuminate her teachings, which should be required reading for anyone interested in lifelong health, energy, and normalizing body weight. This is not a diet. It's reclaiming your natural right to eat the way you were designed to eat. And so that's definitely high praise. Carolyn Lambert is a holistic nutritionist. She's a graduate of Canadian School of Natural Nutrition, and she went through the 8-week program, and she said, I'd like to mention that I did a lot of catching up on the program this weekend as I had a lot of time to myself. And I have to say that I've never, ever participated in such a complete program with so much valuable information. I'm so glad to be part of it. It's really amazing. Brenda Brooks is also a holistic nutritionist. She was a student when she took the program, and she said, hi, Sherry, thanks for the message. I'm really enjoying this outstanding program. I'm loving it and learning so much. Thank you. And for some of the people who went through the program who are now actually in the Return to Food Academy and are Return to Food coaches at this stage, Chancey Dawn, she has actually said that she's overcome with emotion after finishing Module 3 in the Return to Food program, and you feels to be 100% divinely orchestrated. I wanted to write to you and privately say thank you. It's evident that you're following your heart's calling, and I am beyond inspired by this course. And there we can actually see a picture of Chancey. And here she is later down the track in the program, and is starting to get further towards the Return to Food Academy. She said that this program literally was an answer to a prayer for both my life and my business. And it took me on a nourishing journey mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And I've walked away with an undeniable calling to be part of a Return to Food movement. And that this course is and will continue to impact people's relationship with themselves, their food, and the environment. And I feel eternally blessed to have found it. And Chancey is just she's definitely a star, emanating a lot of light in helping people develop a healthier relationship with food and their body. Ashley Joyce is also a part of the Academy. She's a registered holistic nutritionist. And here she is. She says that she's so glad that she's met me earlier this year and found Return to Food. She says, Sherry will leave you feeling inspired about your own wellness journey and excited to help others find their path in a non-judgmental and loving way. And what's exciting for me is Ashley is now found her niche. We really narrowed it down at the Bowen, Return to Food Academy retreat on Bowen Island at the Xenia Creative Development Center. And she is now helping brides get healthy before their wedding. And so she's helping them clear up their complexion and getting to, weight where they actually feel fabulous in their body and their wedding dress, so that they can have a great day and not be focused on not feeling their best, so that they do have a dream wedding day, which is really cool. So Gina, again, is one of our Return to Food coaches, and she basically says that Return to Food takes you on a journey of self-discovery, self-love, and you'll come out of it with so much love for yourself, the world around you, and how you do life. People around you will be declaring, I'll have what she's having. Return to Food teaches you how to nourish yourself, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and mentally as well. It teaches you how to find your way to health, and there is no need to measure and read and calculate. Just eat, enjoy, feel great, repeat. I haven't felt this good about myself ever. And Gina, as she was saying goodbye to me at the very last day of the retreat, so at the last day of the retreat, I bring people into my home, and they get hair and makeup professionally done, and they film 2 professional videos with a professional videographer who edits them as well. And so they have a true live experience and marketing materials for their Return to Food website, and they get professional headshots done for their marketing materials. And Gina said to me after the week and this day of feeling like an absolute star, she said, this was the best week of my entire life. that's pretty cool and exciting to be able to create experiences like that for people where they literally have the best week of their life, and go on to create programs for other people so that other people can have that experience of things creating the best week of their life. So if you are inspired and called to find out more, please, by all means, don't hesitate to email me, Sherry@returntofood.com. Very, very simple. I would love to hear from you. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to pop them in the box. And I think at this point, we don't have any questions. And I'm just going to leave you kind of with that final thought that you basically have one life that we absolutely know of. Okay, sorry, I just keep flashing back there. That life is filled with amazing opportunity. And more than just being a star that sends out light to the world, you have the potential to literally impact those around you like a star does, sending light to your community, to your family, to your friends. And remember, health is contagious, that by your emanating and applying these principles, you literally can send light out to the world and raise the vibrational frequency of everyone around you, even though initially, when you're getting started, it can be quite difficult. As you continue on, please have faith and know that as you continue, life just gets better and better and easier. I would love to be your mentor and your coach on this journey. And if you feel inspired to take the Return to Food program or be part of the Academy, please feel free to reach out and connect with me. I hope that I've shared some valuable information tonight, and that this information really helps you lead your best life and helps you tap into that genius that is within you, that amazingness that you actually have been born to manifest and produce in the world. And with that, I'm just going to send you lots of love, big hugs, and hope you have a fabulous, fabulous rest of the evening. And again, if you have any questions, it's super simple. Sherry, SHERRY, @returntofoodacademy.com. And I look forward to hearing from you. Have a wonderful night.